former Chief Procurement Officer at South African Airways, Dr. Masimba Dahwa, says whistleblowers should be financially compensated. It's been 5 years since he was forced out of the national carrier for blowing the lid on state capture. He testified at the Zondo Commission about dodgy deals involving former SAA board chair Dudu Myeni and former technical board chair Yakhe Kwinana. For more on his thoughts, perhaps also his reaction to the report itself, Dr. Dahwa joins us via our telephone line from the Zimbabwean capital, Harare. And Doc, thanks very much indeed for making time. It's great to have you on the program. You know, you've spoken already about how speaking out has come at a great cost to you. Did you feel at any stage, say, consoled by the report?
Oh, yes. Good morning, viewers. Yes, I think by and large I would like to say the Commission did a great report in capturing exactly what transpired at South African Airways during that time. And I think the content of the report does really state quite a number of interesting things which I hope will be implemented in due course. But by and large, I feel that the job was well done and that it goes a long way in terms of telling the world exactly how state-owned enterprises can be ravaged if we have people of no ethics.
Yeah, what we learned from the report was really quite startling. In part, there's a section of the report where we're told that you at some stage were in a room for hours, I think with Dudu Myeni and Yakhe Kwinana, you'll correct me on those details, being forced to sign documents that essentially would see you being complicit in dodgy dealing. I mean, take us back to that moment and what was going through your mind, especially in a context where you knew what was at stake.
I think basically what transpired during the time is the two board members purposed in their hearts that they were going to take out quite some huge chunk of money from the airline, something I really picked up from the onset in terms of what they were trying to allude to in terms of the 30% set aside and how it was going to be benefiting the people of South Africa. Being a supply chain expert myself, I picked it up that this was unprocedural, it was unlawful, and there's no way this kind of transaction, particularly on the Swissport contract, was going to benefit the people of South Africa, purely because the opportunity was not being open and availed to all the 9 provinces of South Africa and to all the 50-something million odd South African business people who could have wanted to benefit from that opportunity. So automatically, being a subject matter expert, it dawned on me that whatever was being proposed in terms of allocating the contracts to 2 individual companies was something that was unlawful, and it was in no way going to benefit the people of South Africa. And in terms of my terms of reference as the Chief Procurement Officer, whatever opportunities were available, I was obliged to make sure that they were put out in the market and that all the potential people who were interested in such opportunities would equally tender, not just a handful of companies that were being directed to me to say just allocate the 30% of this contract to these particular 2 companies, which was quintessential, and the other one I can't remember the name now.
Yeah. And sadly, the cost for that was really great. In fact, you're still living through the consequences of the stance that you took all the way back then. In part, you were cast out, you lost your job, your house had to be auctioned because you couldn't continue paying for it, and that's how you landed back in Zimbabwe.
Yes, I'm up and about sometimes in South Africa and sometimes in Zimbabwe, but I think the most disturbing thing from where I'm sitting is the fact that what kind of picture, what kind of impression, what kind of message are we sending to the young people joining the procurement profession now? That is from the government, from the people saying somebody to do the right thing in terms of ensuring that procurement is done efficiently and to the benefit of the economy and the people of South Africa. You will be hounded out of organizations, and I think the big challenge for the government and for all the powers that be is to ensure that we set the record straight and we set a good example, especially to the young people joining the profession now, that procurement is a professional space and it's meant to benefit the economies and not individuals. I think that's where I would want to see some real improvement and some real implementation of tangible solutions that seek to professionalize procurement.
Yeah. It does also make us wonder whether there were many other people whose names we might never know, who may very well have suffered the kind of fate that you have in some respects. I mean, given what took place then and what's now in the public domain, do you get the sense that the public is any closer to actually being able to quantify the extent of the harm caused by those who had corrupt intent against those who had integrity?
Yeah, I think in terms of establishing exactly the impact and the consequences of such kind of malpractices by individuals, I think the SAA case study is quite a comprehensive one. And you know what, we can't keep on learning, but I think there comes a time when we have to demonstrate to the ordinary and to the common people and common citizens of South Africa that political will to ensure that the supply chain field is professionalized, is done to the benefit of the nation, not to the benefit of individuals who would have been seconded or appointed to those particular responsibilities in organizations as well as state-owned enterprises.
Yeah. Of course, the difficulty is also trying to ascertain how individuals who were in the position that you were in could be protected, especially because what we see take place, the modus operandi, especially against black professionals, is that if you refuse to take part in what we now know to have clearly been corrupt behavior, you're branded as a black person who wants to appease the white establishment. In fact, I understand that in some respects was the kind of treatment you received.
I think in my view there's no white or black corruption. Corruption is corruption. Yeah. I think we need to call it what it is. And corrupt practices, whether being done by a black person or by a white person, in my view, they're detrimental and they've got ripple and further damaging effects to the community, to the people, to the economy, and because if the economy is not functioning, it's not going to be a white or black thing, but it's because the economy is not benefiting its citizens. So I think I don't want us to try and say there's black and white corruption. I'm not interested in that because I don't think it takes us anywhere. Because whatever the effects of corruption is going to have, the ordinary people suffer. And that's what we need to stop, whether it's being done by black people or it's being done by white people. A professional is a professional, whether you are white or black.
Yeah, yeah. Well, since your revelations, since the release of the report, has anybody, any government stepped forward to try help at least with your socio-economic challenges?
Not at all. This is something that really worries me in terms of the attitude of the powers that they, in terms of their willingness and commitment to make sure that procurement people are recognized for doing their job well and for being professional. I can imagine if this was overseas, it would have taken a totally different twist. I've worked there, lived there for quite some years, and I know that the overseas government will take recognition of anyone who sacrificed their lives in trying to better the lives of the ordinary. And in this instance, not just talking about myself, I know of many other people, including Tulim Chair and Cynthia Temple and many others who have been watching and reading about in Transnet, in ESCOM, who stood for the right. And I think we can't wait and say, okay, thank you very much for having done this. We need to walk the talk. We need to demonstrate the commitment of government to ensuring that people act ethically and they act in the best interest of the common people in the street.
Absolutely. So many lessons to take from your experience. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Really do appreciate your making time. Dr. Masimba Dahwa is the former SAA Chief Procurement Officer, features prominently in this first part of the State Capital Commission of Inquiry's report. And again, we're hearing a common thread from most whistleblowers we've spoken to. It's great that they're being acknowledged, but it's also really concerning that nobody's reached out to at least help them with their immediate problems. Hopefully that situation changes sooner than later.